Chapter 43, Cubans. I always wanted to be strong and ripped up, so one of the first things I did when I got to Colorado was head to the gym. My first workout partner was an Afro-Cuban. He had me focus on the bar, push-ups, pull-ups, and dips. I continued on the bar until I became a certified barbarian, destroying all of my workout partners. I also had a natural affinity towards Cubans because I had some roots in Havana through one of my great-grands who had met Fidel Castro on numerous occasions, but also as fellow Caribbeans and revolutionaries. In 1975, an American CIA-backed white South Africans invaded Angola. Fidel Castro sent his soldiers on a 7,000-mile journey across the Atlantic Ocean and launched a full-scale military intervention to fight off the invading white South Africans and white Zairians. Zaire is now called the Democratic Republic of Congo. With over 25,000 troops and a 1,000-strong elite special forces, they were able to help the Angolans beat back the savages. Jamaicans helped the Cubans in this endeavor. It was Cuba's victory in Angola in 1988 that forced Pretoria to set Namibia free and helped break the back of apartheid South Africa. Cuba is the only country in the world that sent its soldiers to confront the army of apartheid and defeated the South African army twice, in 1975 and in 1988. Nelson Mandela, writing from jail in 1975 when he learned about the arrival of the Cuban troops in Angola, that it was the first time a country had come from another continent not to take something away, but to help Africans achieve their freedom. And in 1988, referring to the Cuban victory over the white South Africans in Angola, they destroyed the myth of the invincibility of the white oppressor and inspired the fighting masses of South Africa. Even the CIA acknowledged that the Cubans were the guarantee for the independence of Angola. And in Angola, they helped to train the ANC, the African National Congress. The Cubans were obviously strong, honorable, and audacious to not only defend 3 African countries thousands of miles away, but also to defend their small island against the American imperialists located just 90 miles off their own shores. America conducted over 600 covert assassination plots against Fidel Castro. They all failed. Outside of the DC convicts, the Mexican Mafia, and the Aryan Brotherhood, the Cubans were one of the strongest groups of men in the federal system. They stuck together no matter what. If you did something to a Cuban in a prison in Minnesota, you could get punished for it a year later in a prison in Texas. They were ruthless with the straight razor and knives. Some of them had already been in prison for 8 years for nothing. They had no convictions and no charges. In 1980, 10,000 Cubans tried to gain asylum by taking refuge on the ground of the Peruvian embassy in Cuba. And the Cuban government announced that anyone who wanted to leave could do so. As many as 125,000 Cubans left, landing in Florida. It was called the Mario Boat Lifts. This is what the beginning of the movie Scarface was about.
¿Cómo se llama?
Antonio Montana. And you? What you call yourself?
Where'd you learn to speak the English, Tony?
In a school. And my father, he was from the United States. Just like you know. He was a Yankee.
Now they were being held in American prisons, with America claiming that they didn't know who these people were. Some of the refugees came from Cuban prisons and mental health facilities, but most were only seeking asylum. A few of them were my good friends, and the only way they could get released from prison if they had a sponsor. Someone that was willing to give them a home and a job in a foreign country where they knew nobody. They later took over the prison in Talladega, Alabama in 1991 and took 11 hostages after losing all of their appeals to stay in America and were to be deported back to Cuba. My workout partner was one of the hostage takers. He was sent there from Colorado after slicing a dude's face wide open with a straight razor because the dude stole another Cuban sneakers in the prison in Michigan. In 1987, they took 28 hostages in Oakdale, Louisiana, and more hostages in Atlanta, Georgia, where one person died and part of the prison was set ablaze for the same reason. The Aryan Brotherhood Tommy Silverstein that killed the two homies, one was Cadillac, in Marion Penitentiary, was being held in total isolation in an underground cell in Atlanta. He had been there since 1984 after killing a prison guard that was harassing him in Marion after killing Cadillac. Clayton Fountain, who was with Silverstein on the first two murders, also killed a prison guard just hours after Silverstein did. It was the first time in FBOP history that two guards were killed in the same day. The Cubans broke Silverstein out of his isolated underground cell, and he was now free and roaming the yard, which put the hostage negotiators in a panic. They believed that he may decide to kill the hostages, who were prison guards, in retaliation for being kept in isolation. So negotiations began immediately for the Cubans to turn him over for some concessions. And they did just that. They wrestled the bigot to the ground and turned him over to the negotiators. That was the last time he would ever walk on an open compound. He died 32 years later after spending 42 years in prison.